Know the difference with Annex Wealth Management? You probably didn't notice, but one of the greatest transfers of generational wealth is taking place. Who gets credit? Baby boomers. That's right. Where are all those okay boomer jokes right now? Brandon Lehman, among other things, is director of Annex Private Client. Welcome back, Brandon.
Danny?
One of the greatest transfers of generational wealth is taking place. How much?
If you look at it kind of from a whole perspective, there are estimates that it's $53 trillion is currently passing on to the next generation. But another stat, and this stat I heard almost 15 years ago, but I think it really is coming to fruition now, is that there are 10,000 people retiring every day.
Oh.
It is a substantial amount of people moving assets to the next generation, retiring, and just a lot of change.
It is a staggering amount, and it's a whole lot more than just signing a couple of pieces of paper. And where we sit, it would involve all of Annex Wealth Management, right? Financial planning, tax planning, estate planning, all that.
It takes an entire team to really work through all of these transitions. So when you look at it, there's traditional assets, right? Your IRAs, your 401ks, your brokerage accounts, but then there's assets like real estate, there's cars. When you get to the high net worth side, what you start to see is there's quite a bit of these assets. Specifically, real estate is an area where you need to do some planning. And that's, again, where the Annex teams come in place. When you look at the financial planning team, where do these sit? You take the estate planning team. They're going to look at the financial planning team said, this is what it is. The estate planning team is going to say, okay, how is it titled? And then the two of them are going to get together with this tax team and say, is there a tax liability after death? How do we handle this?
Where does this even start? Somebody walks in the door and they've got these assets, they've got these homes, they've got they've got all this, and they want to start to plan to hand it down. Do we start with estate planning?
No, the best way that we start with that is we gather all the data. So it gets to be, I don't want to call it necessarily labor intensive, but that first meeting is let's get it all. And for the most part, these folks have a lot of it already in order, whether it's in an Excel spreadsheet or in a PFS, a personal financial statement, it already exists. And our job is to take that data, we extrapolate kind of some of the other things that need to be done on it, like valuations based off of maybe what Zillow or Redfin might say. We're going to put that into our software, and then it's going to give us a real idea of where you sit. Now, is it perfect the first time? No. But that's what the multiple meetings mean when you bring in these other teams. So I guess if you say who starts, the financial planning team starts it. From there, it gets passed on to really the wealth strategist and the wealth manager to sit back and say, okay, who do we pull in next? What is the biggest pain point that we see? How do we work through this? Because you don't know when it's going to pass. So I don't want to be morbid, but you don't know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we've had a situation where we started the planning and the time of passing happened a lot sooner than we expected. So it's getting on top of it right away, and the sooner the better. Now, the other aspect to this that is incredibly important is laws change all the time. For instance, we were working with one of our high net worth clients. We had this discussion of their estate plan, and they kept pushing off saying, no, it's fine. We just did it. We just did it. Well, just did it to them was almost 8 years ago. We've had a lot of changes in 8 years. So it was, please give us the documents. We're going to go through it, and we're going to look at all this and see how to most efficiently work through the current tax laws, because it could change again.
Brandon Lehman, director of Annex Private Client. We're talking about the transfer of wealth from boomers to heirs. $53 trillion is one of the figures that we heard. Tax planning squad, they're going to be fully engaged.
Oh, yeah. When you look at the tax planning side of it, there's two aspects, right? There's the tax now planning side of it. Okay, so what does it look like now? How are we going to be tax efficient now? But then there's the other side of it. After you pass, obviously there's some things that occur. If it's passed on through a trust, right? All of a sudden now you have a step up in basis, depending on the trust. If it's gifted in lifetime, you don't have that step up in basis, but now the assets with the kids, it's outside of your estate. Maybe you've pushed yourself below the estate tax exemption. You've used up some of that exemption, which under current laws is going to change here, projected to change in 2026. So they talk, well, it's a lot of money right now. It doesn't impact most people. Well, it will. It's basically, from what we've seen, going to potentially be cut in half from almost 25 million to 12. Now, yes, that still sounds like a lot, but when you throw in property, because most people just think they're investments, you start throwing in all the properties, you start throwing in, depending on especially if it's collector cars, whole different ballgame.
I know somebody with a lot of those, and he would need a plan for that.
Yes,
right?
It's incredibly important.
Yeah. Brandon, one of the things that we did not mention, but I know we do definitely employ is our ears, right? We're going to be sitting down with the clients because we're not going to say, okay, here's what you're going to do. We're really going to ask, what is it that you want to do?
It's all about legacy planning. What do you want your legacy to be? And how can we most efficiently and effectively help you achieve that legacy and give as little as possible to Uncle Sam? Doesn't necessarily have to be a legacy for your kid. Some people don't want that. But maybe it's a legacy for charity. Maybe it's a legacy for an organization. Our job is to help you coordinate and understand what that legacy should be and then build a plan around it as efficiently and effectively as possible.
Are you planning correctly? Is everything sewn up tightly to eliminate those questions and avoid conflicts? Brandon Lehman, Director of Annex Private Client. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Danny.